we are back. Part 2 of PC gaming and what the hell is going on over there. In the last part, we talked about how there was other periods of history where PC games were not as good as their console counterparts. We kind of wound that up into being, well, a lot of video game makers just didn't give a shit about making PC ports of their games at that time. Some did, to varying results.
There might have been technological barriers that had to be smashed through too.
Well, that was the biggest one that we covered. It all kind of boils down to once they being video game developers figured out a way to make games scroll with the smoothness of NES or other, even Atari had horizontal scrolling. Pitfall is a scrolling game in sections. So once they figured out that riddle, then that's when things kind of took off, and then you can draw a straight line literally from Commander Keen by id all the way to Doom, which changed the whole thing. And so fast forward to today, and I think PC players, yourself obviously is in this mix. I think you've enjoyed a pretty good time in the sun for a number of years when it comes to things like Steam and how much cheaper games are for you guys.
About 15 years, yeah.
But what's going on? What's going on with these goddamn bad PC ports?
Yeah. So this is especially frustrating for me because in December of 2022, I built a brand new PC computer. I hadn't built one in several years. Got all top of the line items. It's got a 4090 GeForce graphics card in it. It's got an i9 13900 processor. It's got literally the best you can get of every thing that you could get. I wanted it. I spec'd it out. I built it. It runs perfectly. All that's great. What I would have expected, especially given my history of building my own computer, is that if there were problems to be had, it would have been with my own incompetence, and the computer just wouldn't have worked. Computer works fine. The games I'm playing or trying to play on the computer, however,
different story.
Little bit different story. So for some reason, in the last I think six months, you can date it all the way back. The first time I noticed it being a problem was when the GTA trilogy was released. And I didn't play any of those GTA games because, again, I was a PC gamer and those were all console games.
To correct you,
yes.
All of those games did eventually, at the time I'm saying, come out on PC. So you had plenty of opportunities to try those games.
Wasn't it? It was like years later, wasn't it? GTA 3 and Vice City.
It wasn't like 10 years or 5 years. It was like, it came out on PS3. I think Sony locked up GTA 3 through San Andreas exclusive for short term. That may have only been, actually, you know what? GTA 3 and Vice City, that was the case. When San Andreas came out, it came out on all available platforms, including PC day and date.
I think San Andreas, that was during the WoW years, and that's just
you're
it's
gone.
A black hole.
Yeah, you're
I'm not here.
Real quick, I'm gonna birdwalk on this real quick, and let's try to keep it quick. I know famous last words, but why didn't you play Grand Theft Auto 3? Like, what if is there one reason or a selection of reasons? It came out in 2001.
Yeah.
You're not playing WoW because that's not out yet.
Correct, but I also didn't have a PlayStation.
Okay.
And it was I had an Xbox. Did I? Yeah, I did have an Xbox.
Yeah.
But I was only playing games on my Xbox and then mostly PC games. And GTA 3 was a mega hit.
Yeah.
And I remember, this is actually... So GTA 1 and 2 did come out on PC. I don't even know if they were PC exclusives, but
they were until PlayStation. Yeah,
they're such different games. It's unrecognizable. And I remember playing those at the LAN parties that we would have, and my brother playing those as well. I was like, oh, this is fun, car crashes and blood and all that. It's top down. And then GTA 3 came out, and before it came out, we were like, oh, it's just going to be another one like 1 and 2. And then it comes out, and it's like the graphics are unbelievable. It's got this great narrative. It's this whole revolution.
It's literally top 3 most influential, most important video game releases of all time.
So I was gonna compare it to the topic of FromSoft comes up a lot on the show apparently, but in terms of like the influence that FromSoft has had in the last 10 years, that's what Rockstar had with the GTA series in the early aughts.
Except for, I would argue, even more impactful.
But I think certainly in terms of sales, absolutely. And also,
design elements too.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
open
true.
world games.
Absolutely.
Like, they're still making games that you see the influence of GTA 3 today, 22 years later.
So if it came out in 2001, I was just playing. I was just playing PC games, man.
Okay.
And I just didn't have a console to play it on. And by the time that I did, or it came out on PC, I was just
Old hat.
Well, I mean, I started playing WoW in 04. So,
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then that was 2004 to 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good chunk of time. A lot of catching up to do. I'm doing the best that I can, but
That's all anyone can ask of you. That's just it.
Had some time to make up for. So
Okay.
anyway.
Well, I don't want to birdball. I don't think I've ever asked you that question, and we were in the moment, so I went for it. But let's go back to talking about these shitty PC ports that keep coming out.
So that was the first that I remember. Now, I will add one qualifier here, which is that in 2015, Batman Arkham Knight came out, and that was such a bad PC port that they pulled it from Steam. And at the time, I remember that being a really, really big deal, that the game was just basically broken out of the box.
I don't think there was another game of that high a profile that happened to at that point in time. That was the first one I can think of.
Well, and Rocksteady had talked about this brand new engine, and it was supposed to have all these graphical flourishes, and then people bought it and they just couldn't play it.
Yeah.
And I bought it, I think 6 months after the fact, when it should have been fixed through patches. And I was still having a lot of issues. It took years before I could actually play that game correctly. So that was the first sort of shot across the bow, but that was still that felt like a one-off at the time. You would have problems with PC games coming out. So we've talked on like Diablo 3 and SimCity releasing and the always online element. So I'm not saying it's a flawless platform, but you wouldn't have this where it's like, oh, the console version is fine, but then the PC version is atrocious. And then in the last year, starting with the GTA trilogy, and then especially in the last like 3 months, just in the last 3 months, there have been, I think, three to five, depending on what you want to characterize a problem or not, high profile ports that are almost unplayable on PC because of bugs and other problems. So the most high profile recently, I guess we can go reverse chronologically, is Jedi Survivor, which we just did an episode on. And that game is basically unplayable on PC. And that really sucks if you went out and spent $60 on it, or you played the previous game and you're like, oh, I can't wait. Got a pre-order.
Right.
And then you get your game and you're
jammed.
just like, and you get jammed. That's a nice sanitized way of putting it. You're yelling expletives at your computer because you can't run the game. It's outrageous. Then before that, you had The Last of Us. The Last of Us is one of the best games of all time.
Yeah.
And according to the reporting, Naughty Dog just basically didn't have enough work to do for their whole studio.
Yeah.
So they decided to just kind of like do this Last of Us remaster and then port it to PC.
Well, they outsourced it to, I want to say Iron Galaxy. I know it's one of the Irons. There's Iron Galaxy and there's Iron Helix. So I'm pretty sure it's Iron Galaxy, which is a company. And if I'm wrong on that, I don't care.
You just do the text.
If I remember. If I remember. But that's like kind of a thing that they do. There was a company in the 80s that worked with Nintendo a lot called Tose, Tose. And they were like this notorious Japanese company that were basically like a hired gun. If you hired this company to make your game, they don't take any credit for it. They make the game based on your spec and they charge a flat fee, and then they don't do any profit sharing, none of that stuff. Nintendo themselves worked with that company. A lot of third parties worked with that company, and the varying levels of quality of their output is kind of all over the place, but more often than not, they were some not great games. Iron Galaxy is a different reputation. They are like the same kind of a fixer type developer where they kind of come in and do a lot of work with middleware, but they also are literally sometimes hired to fix projects. And so The Last of Us was kind of kicked down to them. And I know that it was a somewhat short development cycle for them. So that could be a reason. But yeah, I'm like the fact that, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. Number one, The Last of Us being as high profile as it is. I mean, you've got the HBO show, which is like one of the most talked about shows of the year. And obviously those games on PlayStation, they're up at the tippy top. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that Sony would want to like get this out there to as many players as possible
and time it to coincide with the popularity of the show.
Yeah, exactly. So then like all of these things being equal, do you have an opinion? Why do you think why would they do this? Why wouldn't they just throw a bunch of Sony bucks at this? And no slight to Iron Galaxy, they make great stuff, but why wouldn't they just take something like that in-house or try to beef up Naughty Dog to do a good job with it? What's your opinion on that?
Okay, so my opinion, this is just rank speculation, but
yeah, of course,
whatever.
That's all we do around here.
I know it's like I don't actually know Neil Druckmann, but I think, at least again from what the reporting we've seen, is that Naughty Dog, they're working on this PC multiplayer game that was supposed to be like a DLC for Last of Us 2, and then it got so big, and now they're making its own game.
That was supposed to be the multiplayer component for Last of Us Part 2, right?
Correct, yeah. And it got scoped out, so now it's going to be its own standalone project. Then separately from that, they're working on a new IP that nobody knows really anything about. People think that there might be some Easter eggs about it in Last of Us 2, but nobody really knows for sure about that. But that's going to have a small team because it's in the early stages. Then you had enough developers just kind of sitting around that they just need something for those guys to do. Yeah. And then so they thought that they would do this this port, but then I guess they got third-party help from this other entity to do it. Your question was like, well, why are they doing it at all? Well, the answer is always money. Yeah. And that, it just, so anyway.
No, my question was, in your opinion, basically why is Sony fucking this up? Because I know why they're doing it. And we talked about that. Last of Us is like one of the most popular things on the planet right now. They sold gangbusters on PlayStation. Yeah. Put it on another platform that isn't a rival competitor, which in and of itself is kind of funny because the PC is a competitor to the PlayStation in a lot of ways. But I get it. Like they don't want it on Xbox, but they want to sell it to more people.
To people who don't have PlayStation.
Yeah, and that money thing, I totally understand that. But I guess it's an open question and it's rhetorical in its answer. But to me, it seems like don't do it at all. Like why, if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all.
Well, but then they only get the money.
That's true. You got me there. Then they don't get the money. And the whole thing's real.
I mean, how many copies, pre-orders did The Last of Us remake have? Like people, this is the whole thing. Like, if you go online to like any kind of social media, there's basically a whole bunch of you and me's out there, maybe a little bit younger, who are just banging this drum about don't pre-order, don't pre-order, don't pre-order. And then people ignore that. Yeah. By the way, I ignored that. I pre-ordered Jedi Survivor. Yeah. And then they get these crap games, these crap ports, and then the developers and the publishers are incentivized to do more of them. Yeah. Because even if the reviews are bad, the sales are still always good. Now, eventually, if you do enough of that, you can hurt a brand enough that it has to go away for a while. Definitely. And this happens in the movies all the time. Like Batman was killed for 10 years.
I would argue right now, as we speak, with the release of Redfall, the entire Xbox brand is kind of taking another shit because of this exact thing. They're kind of screwing up the brand, which sucks too, because they completely torched the brand with all of Xbox One. And then the Series X comes out. Game Pass is this huge hit. Yep. Before Series X, before that, and so like it's like okay, Game Pass is great. Now we have these new consoles that are great, and so strike one, strike two. Here we go. Yeah. Let's get that turkey going. Yeah, totally. And they cannot get that turkey going.
And they were trying to do the right thing because they saw what Sony's doing with exclusives and how successful they've been with exclusives. So Microsoft did two really smart things. One, they created Game Pass, which is not a direct competitor to Sony's exclusives. It's just another way for them to get market share and sales.
Well, and it's also it is the logical next step in the video game industry at large, whether you like it or you hate it. Like look at Netflix and look at how content is now consumed, video content. That's like a foregone conclusion that video games were going to come out with a Netflix, and Microsoft was just the first guys to do it.
Well, see, and Google tried to do Stadia, but that doesn't work because you have to have low latency in the stream. But Microsoft's idea, which is like you pay for the subscription, but you're downloading the games to your hard drive and you're running them on your hardware. Yeah. That, as soon as I saw, I was like, oh, $15 and I'm going to get all of this. Yeah. And every first party game you guys put out, I get that
Game
too.
Pass sold me the new Xbox because they lost me completely with the Xbox One. I never bought it. I think I maybe played way back when Killer Instinct came out, the newest one, which I think is actually made by Iron Galaxy. Yeah. I was like, okay, cool. I love Killer Instinct. That's neat. And then that was the last time I was interested in that platform. And it took Game Pass to get me to come back aboard.
And Microsoft seems to be aware of this. Yeah. So they've tried their own studio acquisitions, right? They bought Bethesda. They're attempting to buy Blizzard. Yep.
And they bought Ninja Theory. There was that one E3 a couple of years ago, maybe the final E3, who knows? Right. But that's like big part of their whole spiel was like, look at these studios that we just bought, which is good and great. Where are the games?
So when you look at it, if you just look at like a PowerPoint presentation of all the studios that they own, it's like, oh yeah, this is good. Good job, guys. You've got a nice little stable of studios here. Right. And then you look around at the games they're releasing and it's like, well, yeah, where the hell are they? And then Redfall was supposed to be like a fairly big exclusive.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
And the game was just a dud. And it's not the first time that that's happened. So now we're 2.5 years almost into the product cycle. And if you compare like Sony's exclusives to Microsoft's exclusives,
well,
it's just not close.
You can't do it. Like, this is now turning into an Xbox, and then that's fine. That's fine. I said at the top of these, this is going to be a free and loose talk. But on Xbox, you have Halo Infinite, which I loved the single player campaign. Yeah. And for the first season of the multiplayer, a friend of ours and I played it all the time. And then there was supposed to be an online co-op thing that kept not coming out. Now I don't think it's ever coming out.
Yeah.
And then the multiplayer just never kept up with like all the other competitors. Like, you have Call of Duty's out there who are constantly bringing out new stuff, new ways to play their game, all kinds of interesting like Easter eggs and stuff. And they just shit the bed, man. Like, all the way around, they shit the bed with that game. And it's Halo. It's their Mario.
I know it's the biggest brand.
It's crazy.
That's the one you most have to get right. And again, in contrast to like what Sony does, when they have those exclusives and those exclusives come out, they're bangers almost every single time.
Even the ones that aren't up to snuff are still, if dollars to donuts, compare it to something else in that AAA category, and they'll blow them out of the water.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. The motorcycle game that everybody kind of panned.
Yeah.
That game is actually not that bad.
Days Gone, I believe it's called.
Yeah. Good memory on your part. Days Gone. I played it, and maybe it's an expectations thing, but when you play it and you think like everybody hates this game, and then I'm playing, I'm like, oh, this game's fine. It's great. And then obviously you have your God of Wars, and you have the Last of Us's, and you have your Horizons, and it's like those 3 series alone are better than anything that Microsoft's got going for it. And unless Starfield is the best game that either of us has ever played. I don't think it's gonna be. Yeah, or unless the political winds turn around and the Blizzard purchase, the Activision purchase, unexpectedly goes through pretty soon. I think Microsoft's going to be in kind of a tough spot. And to get back to the theme of the show, the problems that they're having now with Redfall coming out, and then all the issues related to that, they're certainly not helping matters.
Yeah.
Although, but again, there is plenty of blame to go around, because before Redfall, we were talking about The Last of Us PC port, and that is a Sony product, and that was an absolutely shit release.
Yeah.
And specifically, like weird, like just bugs that shouldn't exist. Texture problems. There's pictures online of Joel having like really bushy eyebrows, that just comically bushy eyebrows.
So cool.
Yeah, it's like, guys, this was one of the most advanced graphical games that ever came out when it came out in 2013.
Yeah,
and now you're doing a port, and it just looks, comical.
Well, I know. Look, even though I have said multiple times on the show, I know less than nothing about video game development, but I do understand that. Look, when you have a PS5 or a Series X or whatever, like every one of those boxes is going to be the same. Right. Yep. Like, they can fracture their market base in different ways, like PSVR 2 versus not owning a PSVR 2, or the Series S versus the Series X. Like, those are, but at the end of the day, like if you're making a game for something on those platforms, you don't have to worry about any outliers. Like, a PlayStation is a PlayStation is a PlayStation.
Yep.
So when you make a game on PC, I understand that not everyone is going to have a fucking $10,000 gaming rig, but you still need to sell your product to the widest available base of people.
Mm-hmm.
So therein lies the problem. And I obviously don't know how to solve that. And if I did, I'd not be here. I'd be, flying in my gold jet car. But I think that like we're so far down this chain of technology that like it just doesn't feel like these are problems that we should be having anymore. Like, especially like these really egregious ones that you're talking about, where like, missing textures dude, those Grand Theft Auto, and the Grand Theft Auto trilogy remaster was shit across the board. So fairness where it's due. It wasn't just shitty on the PC, but like, dude, did you see the rain in that game?
Yeah.
What are you? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, putting out the old game is better than releasing something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And the texture problems on Last of Us are bad. Not even being able to run Star Wars Jedi Survivor, though.
Yeah, that's pretty egregious.
That's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
So, and what's just crazy to me, though, is that all of these are coming out in a really short window of time from each other. And it's like every time you turn around, it's like, oh, well, here's another port of a game that's getting released on several platforms, and the PC version of it is absolute shit.
Yeah.
And it's becoming like kind of a cliche in the industry. And it's not just limited to one publisher, and it's not just limited to one developer, and it's not just limited to bad developers. It's basically just limited to AAA games.
Well, I think it comes down to a, commerce versus quality type of a thing. Back in my day, there's something to be said, actually a lot about when you're developing anything. But since we're talking video games, let's go with video games. From conception to exhibition, right? So in an NES game from 1989, you had to do all the things that you needed to do to make that game. And then when it goes gold and it goes to the magical Willy Wonka-esque factory that makes video game cartridges, your shit has to be together before the machine starts stamping.
Well, and the Nintendo seal of quality too.
You can definitely trust that. It's something you take it serious.
When I bought
a seal of quality.
When I bought Home Alone for the NES, I knew it was going to be the best game ever because of that seal.
The seal is there, and you just trust it.
It's there.
Just implicitly trust it. So, like, I know that those days are long gone, but the whole point of me bringing that up is like, Nintendo kind of still does that, where now they're not super innocent. They patch their games again when there's a boo-boo, and that's obviously a good thing in terms of modern technology.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and this has happened, if you released a game and you had a bunch of cartridges published and there's like a really bad bug in that game, well, everyone's out $1 million. So like, you're fucked. So I understand the benefit, and it's a huge benefit to be able to like, oh, we made this mistake, we can fix it with a day one patch. But the whole concept of a day one patch has become a total crutch. So it's like you're making your game knowing full well, like, well, we have this release date that's a target, but it's not like it's a moving target now. It's not a real thing. And so, in my opinion, and again, not knowing from you have actual real world experience in this world, so you can chime in.
Yeah.
But it just seems like, I know that the whole art and commerce argument, it's old as shit. I get it. But it seems like now more than ever when it comes to video games, because of the ease of development on that side, the post-release side, where you can do these things, people are just more and more and more choosing to do that, to just release a game and be like, we'll fix it later.
Well, and they're not being punished for it. That's the biggest thing. You have to expect, if you want people to change their behavior, that there has to be accountability for their behavior. And what that would mean is, if Batman Arkham Knight comes out and is really bad and it gets pulled from Steam, that the next time a Rocksteady game comes out, now in this case it's 8 years between Rocksteady games, but
the new one is Justice League, right?
The one
isn't that
kill the Justice League,
which is being
which is being panned across the board because it looks like it's going to be a live service game when everybody's sort of over live service.
I don't care.
It's really too bad. Okay, I'll limit this to 30 seconds, but Rocksteady released the original Arkham Asylum, which is one of my favorite licensed games ever. I mean, that is a perfect video game.
Yeah.
And then they kind of started straying away from that.
Yeah.
And Arkham City, and then they after what happened with Arkham Knight, they took 8 years to make a new engine and to make a new game, and then it looks like that game is coming 5 years after everybody's gotten over the type of game that it's going to be, which is basically a live service game with a bunch of microtransactions and all this other stuff that gamers have decided.
No one wants it. Nobody wants this game.
Okay, so this is perfect then. You're right. So what have gamers said in unison in the last 3 years-ish? You know what we hate? We hate loot boxes. We hate microtransactions. We hate all of it. And although those things are still present in some games,
and to be fair, they all still earn money.
Yes, but the industry is moving away from them. It looked like that was going to be the dominant form of gaming circa 2018-ish.
Yeah.
But now the industry is moving away from it at least, and developers are bragging our game doesn't have microtransactions, doesn't have loot boxes, whatever. And some governments have also outlawed loot boxes.
Sure have.
So that plays a role as well. So that's good. And that shows that if people whine loudly enough or act accordingly enough, that you can see change. So you know what we need everybody to do out there? Just stop buying PC ports of games. Either get it on, if you have to pre-order something, pre-order it on console. And if you don't have a console, just don't pre-order it. Let the reviews come out, and then just check the reviews. I hate to join that crowd because I do pre-ordering as well, but I'm also really choosy about it. I will pre-order Elden Ring. I'll pre-order Armored Core. I'll pre-order anything that FromSoft makes until they disappoint me. Mm-hmm. But I would never pre-order Kill the Justice League for whatever from Rocksteady. Yeah. I wouldn't, even though it's free on Game Pass, I wouldn't pre-order Redfall. It's just if you stay on top of this stuff, there are corrective measures that can be taken to kind of disincentivize this behavior. But none of that has been done so far. And so the developers and the publishers are just very strongly incentivized to push these out there and then to just patch the bejesus out of them until the problems go away, if they ever go away.
Exactly. Sometimes they don't ever go away, which is like that. This is the real dark side to this way of making video games. And I'll say this about pre-ordering. I almost never do it. You will get me to pre-order if you have a tchotchke that I want. Mm-hmm. So like a Metroid mug, pre-ordered Dread for a Metroid mug.
Tears of the Kingdom, Brian?
Wall scroll, baby. Got a fucking wall scroll coming. So that's simple as that. But other than that, like I don't pre-order shit.
What was the last thing you pre-ordered that was not made by Nintendo?
None.
Elden Ring?
I didn't pre-order. I just bought it. I just bought it the day it came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically,
it really boiled my.
Here's a Nintendo guy.
Here's the system for the system in which if you want my preemptive bucks, be something that I like a lot, more likely than not be made by Nintendo.
Good start.
And then third and most importantly, give me a fucking wall scroll or a mug. How hard is that to provide me with tchotchkes?
I'm getting a steelbook, I think, for some pre-order that I just did. That's
cool. There you go. That's
and then yeah, I'm getting something for Tears of the Kingdom also, but it's not.
I believe you did Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
I believe you're getting like an art print.
Yeah. Can't wait for that.
Well, I mean, it's no wall scroll. What is?
Taste convey.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so as we wind on down here on this wind. See what I did there?
Yeah.
What do you think? Okay, so we know how we can institute change, and that is to like be smarter about spending our money on things that are not worth our money.
It turns out.
Is there any other take that you have in terms of like where in general, like are there things about PC gaming as they are compared to console gaming that you wish they could get their shit together more so on?
Oh God, what a good question that is, and you're putting me on the spot.
That's what I do, baby.
How about you talk for about 15 seconds to let me think?
Okay.
Just fill the airtime.
So
I'll get back.
Easily, I'll do that. I'll vamp for you. So here's why I don't play PC games. I have Steam and I buy cheap little old games. I think for me, PC is it's almost exactly your PlayStation 4/5 experience. There's so much stuff that I missed on PC over these years because I am primarily a console gamer. So that's a thing that I find myself doing is go to GOG or Steam, find some 99-cent game that no one knows about that came. I bought fucking Messiah the other day. Do you even know what that is?
No.
Okay, so Messiah is this really cool game that came up from Shiny back in like 1997, where you play as this evil doing little fat cherub angel, and you go around and cause mayhem, and it's fucking great.
Wait, is that Shiny the Earthworm Jim developer?
MDK, yeah, all that stuff.
Oh wow, okay.
David Perry, if you're familiar.
I'm not.
Really, David Perry was the main in the 90s. He was like one of the Wonderkin developers. Like he
wasn't. Yeah, I would know him.
Oh yeah, so Aladdin. You don't know Aladdin?
I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on from this. He played WoW. All right. He played WoW for a long time. So I got to defend my guy here. So I think one of the reasons why I am more predominant and almost have my entire life been more console leaning is because I don't got a lot of time for bullshit. I don't like I want to put a thing in and I want it to work and I don't want to mess with any riffraff. I do see where like things like mods are cool. I do see things like being able to like scale up or down, like, you know, like if you want more frames on a game, then you can like slide these sliders down.
The modding community is a significant advantage at PC. Yeah. And especially when you have an ecosystem like Steam, where the modding community has been sort of harmonized within the Steam workshop, you can do miracles with something.
So as a hardcore fan of the best sport ever invented by human beings, professional wrestling.
Of course.
There's a little game called Fire Pro Wrestling World on Steam. And when you go, I had never used Steam for any of this stuff before. So it was my first experience after downloading this wrestling game. But to go in like the I forget what the tab is. You'll know more than I do. But to just download some user-made content.
Yeah.
You just go and you literally check a box.
It's remarkably easy.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And in a game like that, where like I do need to go have 750 wrestlers on my roster, they're there and they're available for me to do. So
Just a click of a button.
I super appreciate that.
So
about
the Skyrim community, obviously, the modding community has done for Skyrim is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then the other quintessential example would be Portal and Portal 2.
Yeah.
There have been entire Portal games, Portal sequels, Portal alternate universes that have been made, hundreds of additional puzzles. So it's like, if you like Portal 2, there are about 100 Portals worth of content, 100 Portal games worth of content available for you through the Steam Workshop. So all of that is really, really cool. What is not cool about PCs compared to consoles? So some of the walled garden stuff, I'm generally against walled gardens, but I really like, I can't wait for us to do the trophies episode, but
really it's going to be more of a intervention. It's going to be more of a trophies intervention is what it is.
So the way that PlayStation has lined up their trophy system, and you can see other people's trophies and you can see your trophy content, how they handle all that. Steam does have achievements, but Sony handles it better.
Yeah. It doesn't hit you as hard as the trophies on Sony does.
It's really cool. So that's one thing aside from just smoother running, easier to set up games that I'll put in the feather in the cap of the console makers. So you talk for 4 minutes, and then by the time you got back to me to give you my opinion, all I could think of is trophies. That's the one thing.
And that's good enough. That's absolutely good enough. And it's so telling of your personality and how you play video games that's the one thing that you would fix.
Trophies are better on consoles.
I gotta get more of my achievements, brother.
Yeah. I think I had 2,000 trophies roughly in Steam through today, but maybe 2,500, and in only 2.5 years of owning a PlayStation 5, I'm past 1,500. I'm closing in on 2,000.
You're going to be catching those tails pretty quickly.
Yeah. So I think I'm pretty cool. I don't know. I think you should think that too.
I definitely do. Definitely do. Okay, so we've solved all of the problems with these bad PC ports. So you're welcome, industry, as always. So that'll be it for this one. We're going to come back with something else. Don't know what it's going to be yet. We'll figure that out. But there's only one way to close this sumbitch down.
Put it there. Put it there.
I'm ready.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.